Have you ever wanted a better view of the air on the battlefield? Well, Ground Air Task-Oriented Radar has entered the chat. Gator Multi-Mission Air Surveillance System provides 360-degree coverage. As an ACAT I program, this system resides within Program Executive Officer Land Systems under Program Manager Gator. PM Gator delivers the Gator, a highly mobile multi-mission radar system designed to fully support expeditionary requirements for Marines worldwide. Joining me today is Ms. Barb Gault, Deputy Program Manager for PM Gator. I'm excited to have you on the show today, Barb.
Good morning.
Good morning. So before we get too far into talking about Gator, share a little about yourself and how did you end up in acquisition?
So I grew up in the Marine Corps. I had a drive to kind of work with the services. When I went to college, I was an engineering major, and I went to a recruiting expo, and I got hired by Naval Surface Warfare Center for the Naval Acquisition Intern Program.
Okay.
I worked at Indian Head. I did a couple rotations, Dahlgren. So I went up to NSWC Carderock, and then I rotated to PEO for Integrated Warfare Systems up at NAVC.
Okay.
And once I got to NAVC, that's when I really started becoming interested in acquisition.
And then you came over here to PEO Land Systems, and that's the end of the story so far?
So when I worked at NAVC, I actually worked with Don Kelly, who is now PM GVAD. And when I came down to the Marine Corps, he was in PMAC 2SN, and he said, "Hey, I've got this job I want you to take a look at." So I ended up coming down to Quantico, worked in PMAC 2SN. I was a CAC2S product director. And from there, I've continued to work through the different program offices. I went to Eisenhower School, did a brief stint at PM AAA, working with WAVs. Then I got selected as the deputy for Gator.
So good deal. A lot of experience then over in the PEO.
Yes.
With our high-profile programs. A little birdie tells me you're from Philadelphia. Is that true?
So, as I mentioned, I grew up in the Marine Corps, but my parents are from Philadelphia.
Okay.
So we took the Philly spirit with us everywhere we moved.
Yeah, so I was a Navy brat, but Dad was from Dallas, so I ended up as a Cowboys fan. So.
It's okay. We can still work together.
We'll not let that come between us during this conversation. So, all right, so you're the DPM for Gator. What exactly does that role entail?
I do most of the personnel things in the office, and I help set the PM up for success for all of his briefings that he has to work on. So he takes really good care of the program aspects right now, interfacing with a lot of our customers and other organizations like CD9, ASNRDA, the DASN. And I focus internal in the office, care and feeding of the troops, making sure that we're getting people on board that we need and they're in the right positions. So internal is my look and external is his look.
The XO in most organizations gets all the grunt work and then the boss gets all the glory. So cool deal. My understanding is that it's not a secret anymore. You might be swapping jobs here at some point.
It is not a secret. So I have been selected to replace John as PM Gator. I will relieve him in September of this year. And Mr. Alex Gerber, our current business manager, has been selected as the deputy program manager.
Wow.
So the three of us will rotate at the same time.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So, all right, so tell us, what exactly is Gator? Let's get into the meat of the conversation. What is Gator?
So Gator is the latest and greatest radar that the Marine Corps has. We are a multi-mission radar. We do air missions and ground missions. And we actually just received a plus-up from Congress to add 8 more radars to take on the air traffic control function for the Marine Corps.
So my inner comedian forces me to ask, do you ever make Gator-related jokes in the office?
So I don't know about jokes. We have a newsletter that we publish, and we have sometimes Gator-themed recipes, whether they're drinks or food.
Okay.
We have a lot of stuffed animals and like little comic book things in the office, all Gator-related. Gator Loki is now part of the Gator family. So.
Okay. So every Friday people going home, it's not see you later and all of that.
I haven't heard that, but then there's only a handful of us on Fridays. So.
Oh, right, because you're going the teleworking situation.
Yes.
All right. The road to IOC. Very long for Gator, about 10 years? Where does the program stand today?
So our combination right now, we are in full rate production. We are doing fielding to the fleet. We just finished fielding our 22nd system. And we're also in research and development because Gator has proven to be such an advanced solution for a lot of our requirements and mission sets that we are actually adding naval integrated fire control. We're working in the integrated air and missile defense. Extending the range of Gator. By fully populating our radar, we're actually able to extend the capability and look further out for targets.
So when you say naval integrated fire control, so ship at sea could use information from Gator for it to prosecute a mission as well?
They could. So the way that would work is Gator would be connected to a C2 system. So for us, it would be either CC2S or CTN in the Marine Corps. And they connect through cooperative engagement capability with the Navy. And then CEC allows us to connect with either the E2Ds or the ships so that we can pass sensor data.
Okay, what about AFATIDs on the Army side?
We work AFATIDs with the GB2, the ground-based mission set. So we do pass information via that channel to the Army. Okay,
so really the Gator could be providing fire support to, well, at least information for its fire support to any of those services. Cool.
We've actually conducted a couple of test engagements where we've shown that Gator can work through the Army's IBCS, and we supported a missile engagement when Patriot was not available. Gator actually helped control the sensor data.
All right, so what about interoperability within the Marine Corps? I understand MTVR, Gator, what's going on with this?
So we do work with the MTVR. They are part of our power equipment group. We also have Humvees. They pull the radar equipment group and the communications shelter. But in addition to that, we also work with PMGBAD for their MREC mode. And we work with PMAC2SN. We integrate with CC2S and CTN. So we have a lot of the systems that are resident in the PEO that we support and are supported by.
Right, so one big happy Marine Corps family. Well, the PEO, yeah, the two vehicles are now over here, but right, they were all at the PEO, so right. Maritime power is an essential element of force design. The National Defense Strategy, obviously we're trying to do Force Design 2030 right now. How is Gator leading the way in sensor technology and supporting overall the Commandant's vision?
So Gator is very much tied into Force Design 2030 initiatives with the pivot to the Pacific and the focus on the near-peer adversaries in that region. Gator is an essential sensor for maintaining situational awareness and air defense or surveillance capabilities, helping us project power in the region so that we are ready for anything that may happen.
All right, so you talked a little bit about interoperability with Army and Navy, but just in general, your relationship with the other services, maybe with the other systems commands, NavAir, I presume you talk to occasionally.
So NavAir, I think we're going to start building a relationship with.
Okay.
They really have the air traffic control expertise, and we're going to be leaning on them to help us to develop our requirements for bringing that capability into our radar, the testing that we're going to have to do to make sure that the capability that we grow for the radar meets the needs of the Marine Corps. Who we really work with on a larger scale is NAVC.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, we work with PEO for integrated warfare systems. We work a lot with cooperative engagement capability, and they really are our gateway into working with naval operations.
Yeah, I had a buddy who was the safety guy for CEC for years, so maybe he'll listen to the podcast, and I kind of gave him a shout out. So cool deal. What is next for the Gator team? Where are we headed? Technology? What's going on?
So we actually have quite a few ECPs in process, engineering change proposals. We are doing a radar signal processor refresh. If you look at the Gator, because it took so long to develop, we have some pretty old technologies considering where technology is today. We have a 2007 era processor that we've reached the limit for capacity to conduct mission sets. So by upgrading the processor, we're now extending our capability to continue to add new functionality into the Gator. We're working on the extended range, adding the new TR module so that we get the longer range capability. And that's really key for the Marine Corps because with the divestment of the TPS-59, there's a gap in our mission sets. So Gator won't cover the whole long-range mission set, and we will be able to cover a portion of it with that extended range capability.
Are you doing anything like making it smaller, lighter, more expeditionary?
I don't know that we could get more expeditionary than we already are.
Okay, all right.
We're a pretty small footprint, all things considered, the way other radars were. We are looking at how do we get lighter when we go through the island chains. We're looking at logistics support. We are primarily a generator-operated system when we're not on shore power. So our next step is where can we draw power from that we can shorten the logistics supply chain? So do we develop power cells because seawater is readily available? So that'll be one of the things that we'll have to look into the future is how do we set Gator for success and reduce our logistics trail?
All right, so maybe that leads into my next question then. So industry is often on the leading edge of power, for example, but what is your relationship with industry like? And if there was anything you could ask industry to focus on to help you out, what would that be?
I think that the next step that we'd like for their help with is the TR modules. So we originally started with Gator was in the gallium arsenide technology. Then we upgraded to the gallium nitride technology, so we were able to reduce the number of TR modules required to have the same functionality. Now, what's the next step? Because GaN technology is becoming part of the older set. So what's the next TR module form that would also allow us to maybe reduce power requirements in the system or further extend our range? So that's something that we could use some help with.
You've got another team working on future radar systems. What are you doing there? Any star performers going on?
So we do have 2 product lines in Gator. Primarily the questions we've covered are the Gator baseline, the fielding and production systems, but we also have a second production line on Gator's future radar systems. And underneath that product line, we are developing technologies we are transitioning from the science and technology phase and starting to bring them into the program office and set them up as ACAT program projects. The top one that comes to mind is the MUD-RACE family of systems, which stands for Multi-Domain Radar in a Contested Environment.
I love Marine Corps acronyms.
So basically, this system is complementary to the Gator, and it's helping us focus on our survivability capabilities.
Okay. All right. So what else you got inside future radars? You said one of them is MUD-RACE. What else?
So we are also transitioning another project called DDAS. So DDAS is also complementary. It's helping us to increase the digital capabilities of the MUD-RACE system.
Okay.
And then the third thing that they're working on is integrated air missile defense. So they really are helping us figuring out how to integrate Gator and MUD-RACE with all of the other services technologies.
That sounds like some GBAD stuff as well.
There is some GBAD in there.
Okay.
We also actually have a system the Air Force procured. So they're going to be putting a Gator on their Nevada test and training range.
Okay.
And we'll be using that to test some really interesting tactics for the Marine Corps and how we fight going forward.
Working with some big brain Air Force people. Yes. Is that AFRL or?
No, it is part of their 3-dealer program.
Okay.
Their 3-dimensional long-range radar. Basically, Gator was considered as one of their solution sets. They had what they call the speed dealer competition, and they ended up selecting a Lockheed solution. However, in the interim, Gator meets some of their baseline requirements, so they're starting with us in the range to kind of get their system going, and then when they bring in their new radar, they'll be able to take a look at the differences in capabilities.
All right, so let me ask you just a broad question. So your whole portfolio, John's whole portfolio, soon to be your whole portfolio. So what about interoperability with allies and stuff like that? We talked about Navy and Army.
So there is significant interest from our allies and partners for doing foreign military sales with Gator.
Okay.
Over the last couple of years, we've conducted probably 8 briefings, but that we have had requests from about 26 different partners, including NATO. So interest is growing. Now that the pandemic is kind of winding down and we have more opportunities to travel, I expect that interest will continue to ramp. We've also finally had the capability to provide pricing and availability data. So I see in the next couple of years us really establishing some concrete FMS cases with the State Department and some of our partners.
All right, so what challenges have you specifically faced inside Gator?
The biggest one we are facing right now is spectrum reallocation. With the development of 5G technologies, industry is very interested in providing that to the public as consumers. Unfortunately, 5G operates in the same band that the radar operates in. So we have already had a portion of the band has been auctioned off for industry's use, which has really condensed Gator's ability to operate CODIS.
Okay.
So there is also consideration of selling the entire band, which would put Gator in the difficult position of not being able to operate CODIS at all.
Okay.
So we are heavily engaged with working with Don CIO to integrate and liaise with the White House's task force. The current impact of the partial band loss, we have to condense down the frequencies we use. So it impacts training in garrison. It impacts our ability to conduct exercises in the field and do testing events. So we just have to be very conscious of that and make sure that as we're training and conducting these events, we're still seeing real world scenarios and not just the limited band that we have.
Given what is my day job, safety and stuff like that, luckily you and I have never really had interface, meaning you've not had a whole bunch of mishaps on your system. But what kind of safety and maybe environmental challenges have you faced with the Gator system?
So because we are a newer radar, a lot of the test ranges we've been to, we've never operated there. So we've had to go through and make sure that we're complying with the requirements there. We're not having any negative impact on maybe the natural wildlife that's there. So especially we went to Wallops Island. We've been out to Mictissa. The turtles out there are very sensitive.
Right.
We're moving to Hawaii. I know there's a lot of challenges out there. So we just want to make sure that we don't have any negative impacts once we start operating the system in new locations.
Right. You got to follow all the NEPA rules and stuff like that. Good to go. Well, thanks for explaining that.
Sure.
So my understanding is your degree is in mechanical engineering.
It is.
And so you moved over to program management. But as a woman, at least started in a STEM field, do you have any advice for, I mean, not just young women, but anyone out there looking at getting into STEM, getting into acquisition, et cetera?
So I definitely think STEM is a growing field. I think I was on sort of the beginning end of it where I was coming up. I think there's a lot more focus on it. My nieces, for example, are learning computer programming in high school. That wasn't even an option for me. So I think technology is going to continue to advance. Cybersecurity, for example, they asked me what they should work on, and I told them that would be a really good field to focus on going forward.
Right, great degree to get today, right?
Yes. So I just think that technology is going to continue to advance, and it's going to become a much larger field of employment going forward. But on the other hand, I also see there are still some skill sets that we're going to need no matter how technologically advanced we get. Welders, for example.
Welders, right.
So for the people out there who have kids who maybe are not interested in pursuing an advanced degree or they're just not technology field, there's still a lot of good trade sets that I highly recommend that people pursue.
You can make a heck of a living as a good welder.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, Barb, thank you for all of that conversation. But around here, we've got this thing we call the lightning round. Are you ready to field the lightning round questions? When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be an astronaut.
How's that going for you?
Well, that's the reason I'm an engineer.
All right. So if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
So not one historical figure. Having grown up in the Philadelphia area and now living here in D.C., I spent a lot of time in National Archives.
Okay.
Constitution, Declaration of Independence. I would have liked to have been in the room while those documents were being generated.
All right.
Just seeing the back and forth and the compromise and see maybe how we can apply some of that to the principles.
So maybe you just want to have a round table with the founding fathers, Franklin, Monroe, right?
And if I could bring them forward today to see, is this what they could have even imagined for us and how we operate today, what advice would they have for us to see how we can kind of get back to the more middle ground?
So one thing that when we talk about the founding fathers, George Washington wrote a farewell address when he was not going to run for a third term as president. Read George Washington's farewell address at least once. I read it every couple of years. We made all the mistakes he's warned us against. So he really knew what was going on. So if you want to know what the founding fathers, you read his. All right. So do you have any tips for maintaining a work-life balance?
I think you have to set boundaries. I'm really great at giving advice, not so great at following my own advice. So one of the things that I did, especially during the pandemic, was I kept a schedule. Okay. If I was going to work, I would still, pack lunch, I would get dressed. And I made sure that when the time came, shut down and separate, you have to be able to have a personal life and balance that with the work. There's never a good time to take leave, but you still need to make sure that you take time away because I think that helps you refresh and recharge. And then you come back and you have a better perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that's excellent advice, especially in the work environment that we see today. Maybe 4 years ago, someone been like, what is this telework thing you speak of? But it is very much a reality today. So,
and I am an advocate of telework. I think there's a time and place for it. I don't think we can conduct all of our operations completely remotely, but I have seen the benefits of it where the folks, especially in my office, are able to balance being in the office and then their telework days, balancing their family life and being able to spend more time. So that's one of the recurring themes that I've heard from some of our staff is that they like to be able to be there for sports games, orchestra shows, plays. So there's a lot of opportunities I think that we had that we didn't because either the commute was so long or the timing was off. So I definitely appreciate having that work-life balance with our work.
All right. So what is a TV show, book, movie, or podcast that you would recommend?
Oh, gosh. I'm a big fantasy sci-fi person. So I really like things like Netflix has Altered Carbon. I think that was a really interesting concept.
The books are better.
Being able to continue to move forward. It's also scary to me too because your whole life is downloaded onto a chip. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, once you get erased, it's the same concept of death, right? You're finally gone.
Right. Yeah. So if you haven't read those books, I would definitely encourage those. But the Netflix adaptation is excellent. So again, Barb, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
This concludes another episode of Equipping the Corps. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. If so, please take a couple minutes to leave us a review, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. Until next time, stay safe. This is Tripp Elliott signing off.